Welcome in to Texans Today, everybody. I am your host, Jeremy Chuggs, and on today's show, I'm going to be ranking all the Texans position groups going into 2025, best to worst. And you know, actually, I switched it around. I'm going to go worst to best on today's show, position group by position group. What is the one that we have to be most concerned about, and what position group do I think the Texans have the best in the entire NFL? Before we get into that, I am on the road to 31,000 subscribers. And if you want to join the #1 Texans channel and community on YouTube, because this, I think we fostered maybe the best community for Texans fans here on YouTube. And if you want to join the over 30,000 people that have already hit that sub button, well, what's stopping you? It's 100% free. We're trying to continue to grow and show my bosses that Texans fans are here and they like to represent. So if you love the Houston Texans, if you want to be part of the #1 Texans channel and community on YouTube, it's one simple step. You got to go down and hit that subscribe button. And probably to no surprise to all of you, because I'm guessing all of you are Texans fans out there, offensive line comes in dead last in my position group rankings. Now listen, this doesn't mean I think the Texans offensive line is absolutely doomed and they're going to be, the worst offensive line in the NFL. But there's just a ton of question marks, right? Whenever I look at this offensive line unit, nobody really stands out as a surefire guy. Nobody stands out as, oh yeah, I feel secure with that guy at that position. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of potential in this unit. And, I titled this show, around a shakeup on the roster. And that's because up until this point, I've had rookie Ariante Ursery starting at that right tackle spot in my Texans depth chart projections. A lot of people, though, are projecting Blake Fisher, second-year man out of Notre Dame, also selected in round 2 to be the starting right tackle for this Texans team. And just in that, there is so much uncertainty. It could easily be Blake Fisher. It could easily be Ariante Ursery. Ursery could also challenge Cam Robinson for that left tackle duties. If, there's nobody that they feel comfortable with at the right tackle spot, they could end up kicking Titus Howard back out to that tackle spot where he has played most of his career for this Texans franchise. There's so much, just not being sure, not knowing around this Texans offensive line. The key will be the young guys. The key will be, making sure you don't have to kick Titus Howard back out to right tackle if he can stay in at that right guard spot instead. Because if Blake Fisher or Ariante Ursery, if either of those guys can step up and be a solid starting piece, I think this Texans offensive line will improve on last year. Even though they don't have, the top-end talent in a Laramie Tunsil, I think overall this Texans offensive line can improve. Next up, tight ends. This is a position group. I'm not even going to lie to you guys at home. I almost flip-flopped these. I almost had tight ends above offensive line just because, just as I said with the O-line, there's a ton of question marks with this tight end group because Dalton Schultz had maybe his worst year of his career last season for the Houston Texans. Cade Stover, a rookie, showed you some promise, but, nothing to make you feel like he's going to be the guy for the Texans at the tight end spot in 2025. You re-signed Brevin Jordan, who looked good last offseason before he had that injury, and you drafted somebody in Luke Lachey in the 7th round. So it really comes down to a bounce-back year for Dalton Schultz. Can he block? Can he be a guy who, not bad receiving stats, 53 catches, 532 yards last season, but be more of a safety blanket for C.J. Stroud. Also, not be a liability when it comes to the blocking and protection for this Texans offense. I think the tight end room is a sneaky one that Texans fans should be worried about because there's, we have Nick Caley, new OC. He's a tight end guy, was a tight end coach with the Rams, was a tight end coach with the New England Patriots. But can he get the most out of the guys that this Texans team has on their roster, or will they be looking for a new tight end come next offseason? Let's go to number 8 on the list. And I just lumped all of special teams in. And I know this might come as a surprise for some people, like being like, oh, I thought we had a decent special teams. They're not bad. I'll say that. They're not bad. But call me crazy. I think the Texans might miss John Weeks, their long snapper, who, once again, was the long snapper for the Texans since 2008. He was their long snapper. The Texans have not had to worry about that position for that long. They now have a UDFA and Austin Brinkman who will be taking over that position. Fairbairn, Kaimi was hot and cold last year. Hit that, obviously, that game winner up against the Buffalo Bills. Struggled in the playoffs up against the Kansas City Chiefs. So he is somebody who, whenever he's good, he's great, but also has had some consistency issues. And then, Tommy Townsend, the punter, he's mid. He's average, right? Like, he's good, but in a lot of the punter metrics, he's kind of middle of the pack, anywhere from that, 10-9 to 15 range. So he's good, but obviously, hopefully, we won't have to use Tommy Townsend a ton this season because the offense is going to improve. Now, the lowest ranked group on the defense, and it's not even close for me, it's the linebacker group for this Texans team. Now, I like what we have. And obviously, when you have your head coach who's a former middle linebacker in the NFL, I think he can take some more chances on guys and feel more comfortable with what he's got going on. As I look at this unit, though, the only person that I think I'm sure, like this dude, I know what he brings to the table and I know he's going to ball out, is Azeez Al-Shaair. A lot of guys in this room who I think have a lot of potential. Christian Harris was injured all of last year. I think he has a lot of potential in a contract year. Henry To'oTo'o has stepped in very nicely. Can he continue to ascend and take that next step into possibly being the number 2 linebacker on this Texans team? Or will it be free agent addition E.J. Speed? They signed him from the Indianapolis Colts, and DeMeco Ryans had a lot of glowing remarks about Speed on, how, obviously, last name Speed, the speed in which he plays the game. I think, obviously, knowing the AFC South as well, playing for the Indianapolis Colts the past couple of years will help him in his progression with this Texans defense and maybe help him see the field a little bit sooner, especially in those division rival matchups. I want to see what E.J. Speed can bring. The linebackers, even though I'm not worried about them on the defensive side, definitely my least confident position group for that unit. Let's go to another offensive unit, though, the running back position, where the Texans maybe made one of their splashier signings in former Browns running back Nick Chubb. And this unit, from top to bottom, looks really good. Joe Mixon, Nick Chubb, that 1-2 punch, I like it. You also drafted Woody Marks in round 4 out of USC, the pass-catching back, who I think fits perfectly with what the Texans need. You have 2 guys who are going to be kind of your workhorse guys, and then you have Woody Marks who can catch the ball out of the backfield, be that third down back. Fullback, British Brooks, Jakob Johnson, I think you can't go wrong either way in that end. I have them low, though, maybe low in some terms. I have them number 6 on this list because I do love the duo of Joe Mixon and Nick Chubb, but health is a major concern for this unit going into 2025. Joe Mixon missed a couple weeks last year, has been, dealing with some offseason injuries with his lower half, like with his ankle and with his foot. And Nick Chubb, obviously, we've gone over ad nauseum the injuries that he's faced over the past couple seasons that have kept him out for playing with the Cleveland Browns. So you have 2 guys who are really good. When they're healthy, maybe both top 10 backs in the NFL. The key word is if those guys are healthy, and that's going to be something that we're going to have to be watching throughout, especially the preseason, because we all know during the preseason training camp, there's always those injuries that kind of take everybody out. Look, last year we had Brevin Jordan. Seems like right as the season started, he was out for the year. So I'm hoping that those guys can stay healthy and give the Texans a nice dynamic 1-2 punch throughout this season. Now, coming up, I have my top 5 position groups ranked for the Houston Texans. But before we do, insane hoodie deal. And I came across this and I was like, I got to tell my guys, I got to tell this community about this insane deal because, our friends over at Fanatics, they usually got you covered. But look at this. And if you want the key, I know it's summertime. I know it's hot outside. But the key is you buy your winter clothes in the summer. These hoodies, they were $69. They are now $27. No typo. You're hearing me correctly. Was $69. Now they're $27. They have it in the battle red. They have it in the steel blue, and they have it in gray. All you got to do, go to chatsports.com/HOU massive sale. And I'm telling you, these puppies will sell out. Limited sizes, and because they're on sale, once they're gone, they're gone. So I would recommend go checking him out today, see what sizes they have in the 3 different colors, because as of right now, they don't have every single size in every color, but they do have every size in different colors. They might have, I think the XL sizes in the navy. I think in the red ones, they have more of the smaller sizes. So go check them out right now while supplies last. Once again, was $69, now $27. I was like, dude, I'm a bargain guy. This is one of the best bargains that I've seen on the internet in a while. Go check it out. This link will be in the comment section and description of today's video. All right, number 5 on the list, wide receivers. And while I was making this list, I was actually like, you know what? I actually have receivers a little higher than I thought I was going to have them, especially, the turnover from year over year. Last year we had Tank Dell. Last year we had Stephon Diggs. And the only guy that really was a key contributor for the Texans in the wide receiver room returning is Nico Collins. But I really like what the Texans did to replace all of those guys that we had last year, including Tank Dell, who's going to start out the year on IR. You went out and got a couple of guys in the draft. You also traded for Christian Kirk. But your first selection in this year's draft, Jaden Higgins out of Iowa State. I mean, this dude has a ton of potential. During OTAs, during minicamp, he was showing out. 6'4", that amazing, catch radius. And a lot of people are already saying, what's Jaden Higgins' pro comp? A lot of people are saying it's Nico Collins. And I know a lot of people, why did you draft a guy that's just like Nico Collins? If you're telling me I could have another Nico Collins on this team, yeah, give me 3 of those. Give me 3 Nico Collins if that's available. Jaden Higgins, I can't wait to see how he translates to the NFL game along with his teammate and Jalen Noel. But I have a lot of high hopes with this Texans wide receiver room. I actually almost put them ahead of this next unit, which is going to be the safety room. I think the Texans have done a really good job building their secondary. I think they have the best secondary in the entire National Football League. But let's start with just the guys on the back end. And maybe the best move that the Texans made during this entire offseason, this guy right here, C.J. Gardner-Johnson. You traded your worst offensive lineman, Kenyon Green, for C.J. Gardner-Johnson. I mean, what a steal. He's not making a ton of money this year compared to most of the other safeties in the NFL. And I think you're pairing him with, a guy who had a fantastic year, a snub for Defensive Rookie of the Year voting in Kalen Bullock. I think these two guys, when you pair them up on the back end, other teams' quarterbacks better watch out because we now have 2 ball hawks on the back end in Kalen Bullock and C.J. Gardner-Johnson. I mean, both those guys had more than 4 interceptions last season alone. So you add those up, looks like it's kind of like a little bit of a no-fly zone that the Texans are creating on the back end. Number 3, I'm going to go with the quarterback room for the Houston Texans. And I think, a lot of people are saying, oh, yeah, of course, C.J. Stroud, which I will say it right now, I'm all in on Stroud. I'm Stroud and I am proud because I think he is going to be a top 10 quarterback, full stop, period, into discussion in 2025. I think he has all of what it takes to do that. You saw what he did last year in a down year where he had easily one of the worst offensive lines in the National Football League, and 2 of his top 3 receivers missed the majority of the 2024-2025 NFL season. Now, with a new offensive coordinator, that's going to maybe help him out a little bit better, a better protection scheme with this offensive line, and weapons that hopefully can stay healthy, I am all in on Stroud. All aboard the Stroud train. Choo-choo. I am ready to anoint C.J. Stroud our franchise guy and somebody who I am ready to hitch my wagon to for years to come. But the reason why I have the quarterback position at number 3 is I also think the Texans sneakily have one of the top backups in the entire National Football League. Davis Mills signed an extension last year to stay with Houston for another season, and I love that move because I think Davis Mills has graciously taken the role as the backup quarterback, which, he started his first years with the Houston Texans out of Stanford, and it's hard. It's hard somebody else coming in, taking your job, taking your position, but I think he's helped C.J. Stroud tremendously transition to the NFL, and having a team guy, having somebody who you trust. If C.J. Stroud goes down, I'm not saying it's a good thing whatsoever. The season, it would definitely get a lot harder. But if the Texans needed somebody to come in for a drive, come in for a quarter, come in for a game or two, I'm perfectly fine with turning to Davis Mills because I think he's not somebody who I see as a starter in the NFL, but he's somebody who I see as a premier backup in the NFL. Think of like a Brian Hoyer. I know he's not a great quarterback in terms of somebody who you think of as a top-end starter. But how long has he been in the NFL? Like 9, 10, 11 years? Because he's smart, he knows his role, and he, gets to a team, learns the playbook, and helps out the starting quarterback. And that's exactly what this man right here, Davis Mills, does for this Texans team. Now, before I get into my top two, and I think a lot of people know the top two position groups with the Houston Texans that I think right now, I want to hear from you folks at home. What's the Texans' best position group going into 2025? Let me know down in the comments section. I want to hear from you folks before I give you my top two. What do you think is the best position group for the Houston Texans in 2025? Number two, I'm going with the cornerback room for this Texans team, and it's plain and simple. I think the Texans have the best cornerback duo in the entire National Football League. You have Derek Stingley, the perennial All-Pro. You add in Kamari Lassiter, the rookie from last year who shocked everybody as, I know a lot of people hype up the Eagles' two rookies from last year, Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. I actually think Kamari Lassiter is better than both of those guys. He is so good in the run game, helping out with his run defense. And you have to think, Derek Stingley, a top two corner, him and Patrick Surtain, either or best corner in the NFL right now. Him and Patrick Surtain, I think, are 1 and 2. Kamari Lassiter, a lot of teams were targeting him. They didn't want to go at Derek Stingley. And he held his own throughout all of last year. A completion percentage when targeted under 45% throughout the entire year as a rookie. I think he will expand on that, and he will be so good for this Texans team in 2025. I can't wait to see what him and Stingley do, pairing up, taking down, some of the top wide receiver groups in the National Football League. Now, that leaves one more position group for this Texans team. I think the number one position group for this team, and this is great news if you're a Texans fan because you saw how the Eagles won the Super Bowl last year. I think the Texans defensive line is the best position group on this team. And I think it's the best defensive line in the entire National Football League because you have Will Anderson Jr., somebody who you traded up for right after you took C.J. Stroud, right? You traded up with the Arizona Cardinals. You gave away multiple first-round picks to go and select the edge rusher out of Alabama. He is finally coming into his own. In 12 games last year, I believe he had 11 sacks. Danielle Hunter, the ageless wonder, who he looks like he's like a Terminator, bionic style kind of guy. And then you add in all the other guys, the depth pieces. And this is why I have them ranked above the Texans secondary, the Texans cornerback room, is because you have a lot of guys who you can filter in. Derek Barnett was great last year. You added Darrell Taylor in free agency. Mario Edwards Jr. was fantastic for you. DeMeco Ryans had flashes. Sheldon Rankins you signed in free agency. Tim Settle had a career year, and you re-signed Foley Fatukasi, who is a stalwart in the middle of the defense. And as I said with the cornerback room, I also think the Texans have the best edge duo in the NFL, which is crazy to say, right? It's insane. It's ludicrous to think you have the best cornerback duo and the best edge duo in the entire National Football League. So to end this video off, I just got to say, the Texans got to capitalize. You maybe have the best defense in franchise history, and that is saying so much considering you had one of the best defenders of all time in J.J. Watt on your teams just, 5-10 years ago. I think these defenses are better. I think they're more well-rounded than those defenses when you had J.J. Watt. So is this the year they finally put it all together? Is this the year they finally get over the hump and beat teams like the Baltimore Ravens and the Kansas City Chiefs? If they can put it together on offense, if they can figure out the offensive line, if they can just have a decent offensive line, I truly do believe the Texans are favorites to make some noise in the AFC and dethrone the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, that's all I have for you on today's show, folks. If you want to follow me on social media, you can do so on X at Jeremy Chuggs, also on TikTok at Jeremy Chuggs. IG, this is my Texans Today IG account, Texans Today CS. Go follow me on all those. We can continue the conversation. My DMs are always open. But as I said, this Texans team, scary going into 2025.